I've had my Uniroyal RainSport tyres on the car now for nearly 2 years. It's just time to reappraise them and give you my feedback and verdict. I've taken some tread depth measurements so you can see what the wear rate is. We're also going to talk a little bit about tyre rotation and the importance of it, and how much extra life I'll get out of these tyres if I do tyre rotation. So I bought these tyres on the 25th of September 2023 at 51,000 miles. Fast forward 22 months and 18,800 miles later, I'm at 69,800 miles, and it's just time to discuss how I've got on with these tyres, how they've performed and how they're holding up over such a long period of time. That means that I do about 10,254 miles per year on average, which is certainly lower than what I was doing. It seems lockdown changed my driving style. Work was different. My whole life changed significantly during lockdown, and since then I've certainly not been doing as many miles, but I think that's average. Let me know what your experience has been. Has your mileage decreased after lockdown, or has it increased? Are you back up to where you were before perhaps? The wet grip on these tyres is excellent. It really does feel like there is no wet on the road at all. You can go through fairly deep water and not have the aquaplaning effect I have on so many other tyres that I've tried. I really can't stress enough how good these particular tyres are in the wet, even at this mileage that I've racked up on them. It's all well and good having a good tyre for the wet, but how do they perform in the dry? Well, initially I actually found them not quite as good in the dry. The cornering just seemed a little bit vague. It wasn't quite as tram-like or planted as it was in the previous tyres that I had. When I expressed that in the first video I did, one of our viewers suggested that I put a little bit more tyre pressure in. And in doing that, it has made a significant difference to the dry performance. So it seems that these tyres do like to have the upper end of the tyre pressure. Whatever your manufacturer recommends for, say, 2 occupants, maybe go for 3 occupants or even 4 occupants in some circumstances. They certainly seem to benefit, particularly in the dry, having that little bit more pressure. This slight increase in pressure stiffens the contact patch, reduces the amount of flexing, and I'm sure that that goes some way to improving the overall dry performance of these great tyres. So how have these tyres worn over the time that I've had them? A problem that I had on previous tyre was cracking across the tread pattern, and the sidewalls appeared to be cracking as well. Let's have a look at the situation on these Uniroyal RainSport tyres. So the overall condition on the edge is pretty good. It has been bumped into a few curbs and scraped, which you would kind of expect, and I will say most of that is down to my wife driving, and I'll completely deny all liability for any of those little scuffs myself, but the reality is probably somewhere different from that, as I'm sure you can imagine. But overall the tyres are in very good condition. There's no evidence of cracking or splitting, and they've certainly kept their integrity, and they've had a reasonable life in the 2 years that I've owned them so far. Well, they started off with 8mm of tread depth, which is slightly higher than what most tyres that in my experience have come with. They tend to be a little bit lower than 8mm. So measuring the fronts, I've got this little tyre depth gauge, which is really simple. It's just plastic. It's got a little black knob in it. You push the black knob into the tyre and it tells you what the tread depth is in a nice, easy to read fashion. And I take a tread depth across the width of the tyre because that tells me quite a lot about the overall car itself. And on the outside edge, I'm getting 5mm. In the middle, I'm getting 5.5mm. And on the inside edge, it's 4.5mm, and that might indicate on this particular front tyre there's an alignment issue. I did hit a pothole quite hard, so it probably is just a case that the suspension received a big jolt and just needs a little bit of alignment. Moving on to the rears, it's much more consistent across the tread. I'm getting 6.5mm on the rears on both sides of the car, so the rears are clearly not wearing as much, which you would expect. All the drive is going through the front wheels. It's a front wheel drive car, and you would expect the fronts to wear more than the rears. I tend to change my tyres at 3mm of depth. Let me know what your policy is when you come to change tyres. Do you wait for the legal minimum or do you do it slightly more than that? I'm finding that at 3mm I still get a decent amount of grip and traction and safety, whereas if it goes below that I'm starting to experience performance issues and grip and handling problems, especially in the wet. So on the fronts I've lost 3mm over 18,800 miles, and that works out to 6,267 miles per millimetre, which is pretty good on these tyres. I'm not a careful gentle driver. I do like to get a bit of performance out of my car when I get the opportunity and when it's safe to do so, I must say, as a responsible YouTuber. At that rate, I'll have about 1.5 millimeters left until I hit that 3 millimeter inside edge. And that means I've got about 9,400 miles left on that tyre. On the rears, I've only lost 1.5 millimeters over 18,800 miles. So that works out at 12,533 miles per millimeter of wear. So at that rate, I've got 3.5 millimeters left until I hit that 3 millimeter marker, and that'll give me about 43,866 miles remaining before I hit that. If I leave things on the car, then I'm going to have to replace the fronts before the rears, and by a fairly significant margin. So tyre rotation is a good idea. You put the fronts to the back and the backs to the front, and cross over the axle as well, just to even out the overall wear and tear. By doing that, I'll get an extra 6,000 to 7,000 miles on those front tyres that are now on the rear, because they're going to wear more slowly. It evens out the tread wear. Now, you do want to have decent grip on the back. It really does affect the handling if the tread on the back is too low. So you can't put this off too long. You can't wait till there's a big difference in the tread. I may have left it a little bit too long in this instance because there's a fair margin of difference between them. But I'm going to do the tyre rotation anyway, just to eke out a little bit more life from these tyres. And I'll let you know how I get on with that in the next video that I do. Just keeping on top of the tyre pressures, making sure they're roughly where they need to be by the manufacturer. That eliminates the uneven wear that you sometimes get with the middle wearing or the outside edges wearing due to over or under inflation respectively. If you rotate your tyres every 6,000 to 8,000 miles, that'll go a long way to evening out the front to rear wear that you get. And just driving smoothly, avoiding harsh cornering, harsh braking will also go a long way to minimising the wear and tear on those front tyres. So let me know what your experience has been with Uniroyal RainSport 5. If there's another tyre that you really swear by, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to get to a point where I need to replace these, so I take into account all of your comments and suggestions, and you may flag up something that I've overlooked or dismissed, and I'll certainly be able to investigate that. I'm after decent performance, especially in the wet, and a reasonably decent long life in terms of tread wear as well, because I have bought performance tyres that wore very quickly. I was replacing them practically every year, which got quite expensive. If you've enjoyed this video, please boot the like button. That really does help us to get out there. If you've not subscribed, please do so. Don't miss out on the great content that we've got planned, and I've lined up this video and this playlist that you should find really interesting. So see you in these next videos.